episode 20, if you want to get correct, which is a celebration in of itself. But anyway, let's get to the movie of this week. This movie was directed by Edgar Wright and written by Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg back in 2004. You know, I never got to see this in theaters, but I became a huge fan of it as I bought it on a digital release. So of course, without further ado, let's do Shaun of the Dead. So Shaun of the Dead is a weird version where it can be considered a mock of zombie movies, but it's not really. It's a zombie movie within itself, and it pays homage to a lot of things, which is something I really want to focus on this episode. The name itself is obviously a reference to Dawn of the Dead, it being Shaun of the Dead. Anyway, they pay a lot of homage in this movie in different ways. The opening score of this movie is, of course, the opening score to Night of the Living Dead. I mentioned the name. One thing I found interesting that I didn't really see as an homage is Shaun's shirt. If you watch there, the movie gets dirtier and dirtier and dirtier, which this is a very, very, it's a big stretch of a reference because I don't really see it that clear, but apparently it is. Anyway, they say that his shirt is supposed to be a reference to movies like Indiana Jones because of, if you watch those movies, they get dirtier and dirtier and dirtier as it goes on, which is a small thing. Also, if you really pay attention to this movie, you will notice that colors are a big thing. All the zombies wear mute colors, and then Shaun wears white and red a lot. Red is also a very ominous color in this movie, usually symbolizing something of importance, or blood, because there is a lot of blood in this movie. So, as we stick on to the topic of references, if you're a big fan of Edgar Wright, and you are British most likely, because it wasn't really big in North America, you will know his show Spaced, which was a sitcom, a comedy, and actually if you watch the third episode of that show, there's a show, I'm pretty sure the episode's called Art. I could be wrong. If I am, this is the actual title. But in it, he drinks and plays Resident Evil and has a dream sort of thing, which inspired Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg to do it. So the next thing I really want to talk about is Edgar Wright's directing style. If you're a big fan of Edgar Wright, this is just going to be basically a sum up of what you already know. But Edgar Wright has a sort of very clean, very satisfying feel to his movies. Especially if you watch Baby Driver, which is his new film, the whole movie is very satisfyingly edited. He also likes to mock tropes in movies, like the gearing up scene. He thinks it's very funny to have it as everyday things like getting dressed and stuff like that had the very like epic gearing up scene sequence type thing, like type feel, and you definitely see that a lot in this movie. Also using the what's in the screen, what's not. You especially see it when Pete's in the shower as a zombie, closes the mirror, and then you see him. Edgar Wright is an example of a director who doesn't just focus on feel, like what's the visuals and stuff like that, or just the dialogue, because usually there's directors will focus on one and expand on it. But Edgar Wright does a little bit of each, and he's also the only directors nowadays, in my personal opinion, that does it right of visual comedy, because a lot of directors now just do verbal. It's joke, 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 cut. For example, if you watch Bridesmaids, there's one scene which explains my point beautifully when they're on the phone, and it's just dialogue back and forth. The last thing I want to talk about is the lore behind this movie, because it really doesn't get touched on. But watching the director's cut, you really get to see it. For example, that homeless zombie with the dog, he is actually the person that turns Mary, Bloody Mary, into a zombie. Then also the weird thing is the two zombies in the backyard are called Mary and the Hulk, and the joke there is supposed to be Mary the Hulk, and I didn't really get the joke, but apparently it's funny, so maybe if I was British I'd get it. Anyway, just to sum up, this movie is something that I don't really see done well, but I've seen done a lot in Hollywood, which is they make remakes just to capitalize on your old past feelings for great movies. For example, the Ghostbusters movie, which to me isn't very well, because then later on you can't, for their idea, if they're going to continue capitalizing on remakes, in the future they're going to have nothing to remake. And also, it doesn't tell us new stories. I do appreciate Edgar Wright, who takes things that we love, like Shaun of the Dead, where he incorporates traits and other things from zombie movies, but does it in a new, fresh fashion. It's the exact same way why I love Death Proof, because it's not a remake. It's transitioning it. Like, for example, the Dawn of the Dead remake versus Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead was so much better. Mad Max Fury Road versus Death Proof. I love Death Proof a lot more than Fury Road. I love Fury Road, but I think it's just better done that way. So I do think that people should be more focused on capturing what we loved about movies, but not capturing the movie. Changing it up a little bit, and that's why I think Edgar Wright does so well, as he does bring forth things that he loved, like sci-fi movies or buddy cop movies or zombie movies, but he does it in his own way. So it's not just rehashing the same old movie. It's a nice little twist on things, and I wish more directors would do it. And if it has the amazing wrapping that Edgar Wright does, of the beautiful direction and the beautiful editing and the beautiful sequence and the beautiful music. Anyway, so this has been it this week. Thank you for watching Movie Therapy. We'll see you next week.